Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
All my songs were released between 2010 and 2012. So I don't know why that happened. It was just a coincidence.
Well, that's a weird thing right there. What are the chances that we're going to have any songs the same? I say 0.
We might.
Really? You think we might? Like, I say 0 chance.
Well, I mean, do you have any songs between 2010 and 2012? Because you can answer the question right now.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Okay, Skip, so normally we do episodes where we count down our favorite or least favorite things, but we're going to go back to the future or back to the past, I'm not even sure, and do one of our old-fashioned episodes where we just talk about random things. So I know because you texted me this week and last week that you have many random things that you wanted to talk about, and it would take up, a full episode. So that's why we've decided to do this today. Before we do that, are we doing listener mail today?
Mailbag.
I just have one. Our good buddy Mark from Philadelphia messaged me last night about our Guilty Pleasures episode, and he said that he must have similar taste to you because he has Rihanna and Pink in his playlists and his music library.
That's awesome.
So congratulations, I guess, for that, the two of you.
Nice.
He said he was going to text me to suggest we do an episode on CDs that we've bought, but now you're embarrassed to own. And then we beat him to the punch because we basically did the same thing. And then throwing back a few episodes ago to our favorite REM songs.
Okay.
I talked about like the song South Central Rain. Is it really called South Central Rain or is it SO Central Rain? Like, why do they abbreviate it?
Right.
So Mark tested it. He asked Alexa to play South Central Rain in his house, and he was happy to report that it played the correct song. So,
you could do that too in your house, couldn't you?
Technically, yes. I could ask Google. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the very, very short mailbag.
Okay. So I know you have a long list of random things, so we should just get right to it then.
Yeah, I mean, I've been collecting like stuff that I know that I've been wanting to talk about, and knowing that some of these are interesting to you as well. Like, I know this kind of stuff that, like gets your brain working. So I'll just go right in. Like, obviously, like, look, we're in like the week between the leading up to the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of NFL stuff to talk about. And then obviously the Olympics is starting. So that's also really big. But the story that's taken over all of Canada sports is the Canadian men's national soccer team.
Soccer.
And they are so popular that even you, who knows nothing about soccer, has become a fan, and it's appointment viewing. Your schedule is revolving around when the Canada is playing, which is absolutely incredible for me to even comprehend that you would be into this. You even texted me asking me for a clarification on a rule, right? So that sort of got me into your head. I was like, well, if Josh doesn't really understand that, but he's still into the game, so it doesn't matter. Let him enjoy it. So.
Well, I thought it was a good question, and I understood the explanation. And actually, right after I sent you the message, I sort of guessed, like, if it goes out on the side, it's a throw-in, and if it goes out on the back line, it's a corner kick. So I did figure it out just before you responded. Right.
So, like, what do you think about the I mean, the chances of Canada qualifying for a World Cup are like 99%. I mean, it's we don't want to jinx anything, but it's basically in the bag. They need to get like 1 point out of the next 3 games, I think, to qualify. So it's pretty imminent. And it's going to be really exciting at the World Cup to have Canada there. My son even asked me, what happens if Canada is in the same group as England?
I think I asked you that exact question a few months ago.
I think my head would explode. I wouldn't know what to do.
I asked our friend Joe what happens if Canada and Italy are in the same group, and he said he'd root for Canada.
Well, Italy may give him may solve that problem for him, because Italy may not even make the World Cup. Either Italy or Portugal, one of those two teams is not making it. So, I mean, look, I would love for Italy not to make it. That would make my day. Sorry, Joe, but that would really make my day. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have anything really to analyze about Team Canada. I don't know like what to say about them other than that it's like been a wild, thrilling ride.
The fact that they were able to win those last 3 games without arguably their best player is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he is their best player for sure. He changes everything that they do. Alphonso Davies, he adds this element of intense speed and skill, but I mean, someone on the radio here said, and it's really, really true, Canada really had a chance to show like the depth of the team too, right? Because they use different lineups every game. They had players coming in and out. And I mean, it's so frustrating, like to think back of all the other years, because every other like 4-year cycle leading up to the World Cup, I would just tell my son, I was like, all we have to do is beat Haiti. All we have to do is beat Panama. All we have to do is beat Jamaica. And we never could do it. We never could beat these teams. Like that game against El Salvador, like 4 years ago, we go in there and we lose that game. Like, it's not easy to play in those South American cities. And like, it just shows the growth of like, I think the coach, John Herdman, deserves tons of credit because he has them all playing together, right? There's a togetherness about the team. And no matter which player he starts or comes in and whoever he substitutes, there's really like a real good togetherness around the squad. So it's like, it's going to be fun. I can't wait for the next 3 games in the end of March. They're going to be also amazing, right?
So by the way, that the last game where Canada won 2-0, I know you remember the winning goal, which went off the back of a Canadian player. It reminded me of, do you remember a hockey player by the name of Chris Kontos?
Of course, yeah.
And do you remember his most famous goal of his career?
Yeah, off his butt maybe also,
exactly,
right?
in a playoff game.
Yeah. Look, they go in however they go in. That was certainly a crazy lucky goal. But you know what? Like when you're playing on the road, you know how it, even in every other sport, you're like, you got to go and you got to play a road game. You got to grind it out and you got to play a road game. And that's what they did, right? They grinded it out. It was ugly. That third game was ugly. It wasn't fun to watch. It wasn't pretty soccer.
Right.
It wasn't the beautiful game, like it was foul after foul after foul and stops and starts. And that's how it goes in CONCACAF sometimes.
By the way, I was kind of annoyed at one of our players. I don't know his name, but he got a yellow card late in the game, and now he can't play the next game. Like, we have a 2-0 lead. What are you doing? There's like 1 minute left in the game, and we have a 2-0 lead. What are you doing?
But the coach has done a good job of managing who's on the yellows and who could have a yellow. And like, I don't think it's going to be consequential. Like, he'll sit out and it'll be what it'll be. Every team has to deal with that. But yeah, you're right. Canada has a few hotheads, which you need, right? You need to have those guys.
Of course.
The National Football League.
All right. So like I mentioned, we're in the week before the Super Bowl, and it's been like weeks and weeks since we even mentioned the NFL. And the NFL, who just delivered us 2 of the greatest weeks of football playoffs that we've ever seen, like just fantastic football games in the divisional round and then the championship games. And now, like, look, you stated several times over the course of the last, months that you didn't watch any football this year. You haven't watched NFL football. Regular season football, you were just like not watching. But I know for a fact that you watched a lot of the playoffs because you were texting me during the games, asking me stuff and commenting. So like, I guess you like the playoffs? Like,
yeah, no, I knew I would watch the playoffs. Like, if you'd asked me in September, I would have told you, I'll be watching in January because, the games matter. So no, I didn't. I watched very few regular season games, but part of the reason I got into it is because there are a lot of Buffalo Bills fans where I live, and the Buffalo Bills are now good for the first time in who knows how long, and they had a great run. Unfortunately, they lost in a heartbreaking fashion to Kansas City, but it was an exciting game. And yes, the last 6 games in the NFL have all been very exciting, which makes it interesting to watch. I was having heart palpitations when the LA Rams were doing everything in their power to lose to Tampa Bay, and I had to turn that game off because I couldn't watch that and waited till you told me it was over. But other than that, everything has been fine.
You were so paranoid that even when I told you it was over, you wrote back saying, "Is it really over?"
Yeah, because I didn't believe you.
I was like, yes, it's really over. The final score is X, You have such a hatred for Brady. I don't know why. Like,
well, because he was on the New England Patriots. That's why.
Right. Look, I don't like Brady. I don't care about Brady, but I respect like the greatness of the man's career. And now look, he's just announced his retirement, so that must have thrilled you, right?
I am thrilled about that. Yes. I don't like when the same team or player wins over and over and over again. It just, like there's 32 teams, spread it around.
Yeah. I mean, and he's getting so much credit for, like you said, almost coming back again in that game against the Rams. He did nothing. He did absolutely nothing.
Right, the Rams were the ones who screwed up.
Yeah, the Rams did it to themselves. But look, let him go, have a great retirement. Maybe we'll see him as a commentator. I don't know. Who knows? But I'm actually glad. You're right. I'm glad he's gone. You know, my son, he's just turned 21 a couple days ago, right? And he's a huge NFL fan, right? Could you imagine when you were 20, 21? There's one player that has dominated the NFL his entire life. My son only knows one thing. The New England Patriots are going to be in the Super Bowl. That's all he knows, right, about the NFL. And actually, it goes even a step further because maybe when we go, maybe we would go back and say the same thing, like certain players dominated the era, but no one's dominated there for as long as Brady has. Like, that's just not possible. And he's also a huge NBA fan, my son, and basically his whole life it's been LeBron, right? Either on the Cavs or the Heat or the Lakers, right? It's always been LeBron, right? So I can't wait for him to retire too. And then you can go even a step further and Crosby and Ovechkin, because that they've dominated hockey in his life, also. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Anyways, I'm happy Brady's retired. Let's get him out of there.
It wouldn't surprise me if like a year from now, there's a team that needs a quarterback and all these rumors, he might unretire. Like it happened with Brett Favre. It happened with other guys.
I don't think I could see him unretiring, but I could see people talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is almost worse.
Even this year, like when the Saints didn't know what to do for their quarterback. And, apparently, they were trying to get Drew Brees to come back for a few games.
Yeah, I heard those rumors.
Yeah. I mean, they're rumors.
And Phillip Rivers also, there were those rumors as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. But look, it'll be interesting to see what Tampa Bay does, because there's Rodgers and Russell Wilson are free agents. Is Tampa an attractive spot for them? Is Tampa an attractive spot for other free agents, or what's going to happen to their team? They still have a nice nucleus of a team, but it'll be kind of interesting to see actually how good that team is with like a normal quarterback. Like, honestly, like Brady was still one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
If Tampa gets Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, that's an upgrade for them.
Well, I don't know about an upgrade, but at least it's not a downgrade, right? It's not like starting over.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. So, like, are you cheering for any particular team in the Super Bowl? Like, do you care about the Bengals or the Rams?
I don't care about either team. Like, for me, it's all about if the team that I hate is playing, I root against that team. So the teams that I hate are gone, which is great.
Yeah.
So I can actually relax. So I'm not rooting for either team. I have no, either both those teams, they don't really instill any emotion in me, either positive or negative.
Right. I mean, obviously I'm going to watch.
Are you rooting for either one?
I don't also care about either team really that much. My son's really rooting for the Rams because he really likes Matthew Stafford.
Uh-huh.
He always liked him on the Lions, and he was thrilled when he got a change of scenery. But at the same time, like, it's very hard not to love Joe Burrow. Like, the guy is just so fantastic,
Joe Burrow in his career has not lost a playoff game, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just this year. That's it, right?
I know, but I mean, like, what other quarterback is perfect? No other quarterback is perfect.
No, that's true. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll see how the game unfolds if I'm going to root for a particular team. I don't know. But, one thing that I always tell you, this is like year 5 of the podcast, and I'm sure I've said it every time we talk about the Super Bowl. I always told you, like, the day after the Super Bowl should be a holiday. Like, there should be some legal decree, like, somewhere, like, that should make this a holiday. So I found out that there's like a school board in the Cincinnati area that already announced that schools will be closed the Monday following the Super Bowl in anticipation of the Bengals' victory.
Well, actually, it's not technically a holiday, but the day after the Super Bowl this year is Valentine's Day.
Oh, there you go. Even better. Like, there could be a huge baby boom 9 months later in Cincinnati area.
There could be.
I mean, look, like I just said, like Stafford when he was on the Lions, like obviously the Lions are like a sad sack situation, you know, like they've never been to a Super Bowl or never mind won it. They've never even been to it. But the Bengals are also a real suffering franchise, you know, like the Bengals, like those fans have really suffered. So I kind of would like to see the Bengals win just for all those Bengal fans. And, you know, Brendan Gallagher on the Canadians is a huge Bengals fan. He tweets about them and posts about them on Instagram all the time. So I'm kind of rooting for them maybe just for that.
The Rams were just in the Super Bowl, I think 3 years ago, and it was the most boring Super Bowl I've ever watched in my life.
It was the worst. That was against the Patriots.
Yeah.
Because that was like, I know you hate Belichick, but look, I think Sean McVay is the most overrated coach in the league. Like, I mean, I think he's fine, but everybody thinks he's this kind of genius. But in that Super Bowl, Belichick showed who the real genius was, you know, because
it was awful to watch.
It was awful to watch, but that's how Belichick operates. He just wins games, right? Like he devises a game plan to make it difficult for you to do what you want to do. So now that I mentioned Belichick, I'm going to flow into my next topic.
Okay.
It's also NFL. So you heard about this lawsuit from Brian Flores, the coach that was just fired by the Dolphins.
Yes.
He's suing the league, the Dolphins, the Broncos. He's suing everybody.
Yeah. I heard about it.
I don't want to talk about like the guts of the lawsuit, but I mean, basically he's alleging he's alleging like a racial discrimination in the hiring practices of the NFL, which I think he's probably 100% right. From everything I've heard and I agree with some of the things I've heard, there's no chance he's going to win. And I think he knows he's not going to win. He's bringing this lawsuit not for the idea of like getting a big payment from the NFL. He's doing it to make a point. He's doing it to try to change how things are going. But the most fascinating thing about this whole thing is Bill Belichick's little piece of the puzzle here. You know about how he fits into this? Yes.
Yeah, I heard that he sent a text message congratulating him on getting the coaching job, and it was the wrong Brian.
Yeah, exactly. He sent a text to Brian Flores congratulating him on getting the head coaching job for the Giants, and Flores wrote him back saying, I have my interview like in 2 days, so I don't think they've made a decision yet. And then Belichick realized, and he's like, oh, sorry, I sent this text to the wrong Brian. He meant to send it to Brian Daboll, who eventually did get hired by the Giants. And this is what led Flores to believe like they were only interviewing him because he's black and they have to satisfy this Rooney Rule that the league has.
Right.
And that the whole interview was basically just for show, which is really terrible. I mean, look, the Rooney Rule, we can debate it high and low. I think it has a good intention, but obviously it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't, because, I mean, if all you have to do is interview minorities, you can interview minorities like till the cows come home, but that doesn't mean you're going to actually hire them.
Right. I mean, look, it's still a league with privately owned businesses, which are teams. And owners absolutely have the right to hire whoever they want. So it's very difficult. You can't mandate hire a black coach. You can't. It's just not going to work. But you can try to change behaviors. Maybe I think the rule is trying to change behaviors, but it's 20 years. That rule's been around for 20 years. I didn't even realize that until I heard it on a podcast. And, 70% of the NFL players are black. And
I thought it was higher than that, actually.
There's only one black head coach right now in the league.
Right.
So that's kind of telling you that this Rooney Rule is not really working. If there's only one black head coach, that's kind of ridiculous. So,
the lawsuit that Flores has put forward.
Yeah.
He's suing. There's 3 teams and a league, and I can understand. Right. Like you said, I'm sure he doesn't care if he wins or loses. He just wants this to come out, in the public. But I can understand why he'd be suing those 3 teams. But proving that the league is doing something, that's almost impossible, because then you have to prove that the league and all 32 teams have colluded to do this.
Right.
Which
there's no way.
Which I don't know how you can prove that.
He can't even prove the other stuff that he's alleging with the Dolphins. You know, he's saying that the Dolphins owner told him he would pay him $100,000 for every loss, so they could lose games on purpose, so they can get a better draft pick. I mean, there's no way he could prove that, because the owner of the Dolphins is just going to say, no, I never said that. And it's not an email. It's not a letter. It's not a text. It was a conversation in person.
It was a
right.
it was a fax.
It was a fax. So like they can't prove any of this. But like I said, I don't think Flores is really trying to prove it. He wants to affect change in the league. I mean, he's a young coach. He's sticking his neck out on the line. No one's going to hire him now.
Right.
Or chances
it's
are
going
they
to be
won't.
like Colin Kaepernick Part 2.
It might. Yeah. So I'm transitioning so beautifully from topic to topic. I'm really proud of myself.
You're almost like a professional host.
Did you see the new name of the Washington football team? It's the
I saw it, and it's terrible.
The Washington Commanders.
So they've been the Washington football team for almost 2 years now, I think. And I actually like Washington football team. Like, they didn't need to give themselves a nickname. They could have just left Washington football team. In fact, I don't know why any sports team has a nickname. Like, if I'm talking to you about, Green Bay, do I have to say the Packers? If I don't say the Packers, you're not going to know who I'm talking about? I don't get it.
Well, if, for example, like in soccer in England, or football as they call it, like the teams don't really have the teams have nicknames, but they're very like, they're not referred to by their nickname all the time. So for example, they'll say like, oh, Liverpool's playing Tottenham, right? So like they don't say the Reds are playing the Spurs. Like, although Tottenham is referred to as the Hotspur more often, but Liverpool is referred to as the Reds only like in different kind of conversations. Same thing like Man United, no one knows I think it's the Red Devils, but no one knows that. Like, like teams sort of have these nicknames that fans made up, right? So it is a bit weird, but I agree with you 100%. Like, the Commanders is a stupid name. And look, they finally made the decision to get rid of the name Redskins. Great. Mm-hmm. And then they fell ass backwards into this Washington football team name, which was perfect.
It was.
They had great logos. They had great merchandise. Washington football team. It sounds like so old and important, and now they changed to this Commanders. It's so stupid.
There's other stupid ones, like the Cleveland baseball team changed their name to Guardians. That's terrible also. And I know why they did that, because they wanted it to end in IANS.
Yeah.
But like, why don't the Chicago Blackhawks have to change their name, or the Atlanta Braves, or the Kansas City Chiefs, or the Florida State Seminoles? Like, all of those teams should change their names. Yeah.
I mean, I think the Blackhawks reached out to some Aboriginal leaders and they had a consultation. I don't know. The whole thing is, look, we can't keep up. And it doesn't even matter, because I'm still going to, in 10 years from now, I'm still going to be calling them the Redskins. I still call the LA Chargers the San Diego Chargers. That's not even a nickname. That's a whole city different.
Right.
So, and you think I'm going to call the Cleveland baseball team the Guardians? I'm going to keep calling them the Indians. Like, in my brain, that's what they're going to be.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe it's going to take generations to change things, So all that being said, if you have like do you have any Washington football team merchandise? Because if you do, it's like collector's item now.
Right. It's probably too expensive to buy it now, because it's going out of, they're not making it anymore.
Uniforms.
We always like to talk about uniforms.
Yes.
So you had texted me when Team Canada, the men's soccer team, was playing their game at home. How come they're wearing black?
I was very annoyed by this, because first of all, I turned on the game. It had already started. Like, it was 20 seconds into the game, and I didn't see the pregame ceremony. And I see one team is wearing black and one team is wearing white, and I have no idea, who's who.
Right.
Because it was a Canada versus United States game. Neither Canada nor United States has any black in their flag. So why either team is wearing black is beyond me. And then obviously they showed a close-up of one of the players, and I figured out who's who. But Canada should always wear either red or white, and that is it in international competition, in any sport, period.
Now, we know the Olympics have started.
Yes.
And the women's hockey tournament has already started. They played games even before the opening ceremonies.
I'm glad you brought this up.
And did you see those uniforms?
Yes, and I didn't like the uniforms they wore in the first game because...
Brutal. First of all, they're completely black with red numbers.
Actually, I think they were black with black numbers, in fact, if I'm not mistaken.
You couldn't even see, you couldn't see the numbers or the names at all.
So they have, by the way, the women's hockey team and the men's hockey team and the para ice hockey team have the same exact uniforms. And they have three different versions of the uniform. There's a white one, there's a red one, and there's a black one. I like the white one. I like the red one. I don't like the black one.
Well, I saw the red one today because they played today again. It's red with black numbers.
Yeah.
Again, it's still not the best, but it's better than the black uniform. So the men's, I'm glad, I knew you would know this. So the men do have the same uniforms as the women.
The men and the women and the para ice hockey team all have the same exact uniforms.
Ugh, those black ones are bad. They're really bad. That's an offense. It should not be allowed.
Really, and I will concede that, okay, if you want to make a third uniform, it's hard to make a third uniform for any team, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, the Toronto Maple Leafs tried to make a third jersey, but they only have two colors. Same thing with the Detroit Red Wings. They tried to make a third jersey. They only have two colors. So it's hard to make a third jersey. The Montreal Canadiens tried to make a third jersey, and they made it predominantly blue because Montreal Canadiens have three different colors in their uniform. So if Canada wanted to make a third jersey and have black in it, the least they could have done was make the logo on the chest and the numbers on the back and on the arms a different color. Instead, they made it black on black, with a little outline, which annoys me when teams do that. And too many teams have done that in the past 5 years.
I heard, I saw on Twitter, after the first game of the women, it was one of the someone who broadcasts hockey for a living. I forget who it was, basically saying this is an offense to all hockey broadcasters because when you're calling the game, you can't see anything. You don't know what's going on. You can't see any of the names or the numbers. So anyways, speaking, and now I'm segueing again beautifully. I mentioned months ago that Team Canada for the Olympics dropped the Bay as their uniform sponsor, I guess. I don't know
as their apparel provider.
A beautiful apparel provider.
It's a good thing you have me on the show.
And it was going to be Lululemon. Now it's Lululemon. And I saw the mock-ups of the Lululemon stuff at the time. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. But I really, really liked them yesterday. I was really kind of, they're really different and Lululemon style, right? So it's true to what it was supposed to be. And I actually may go to the mall today to Lululemon to actually look at the stuff in person and maybe buy some Canada merchandise. Although, like I mentioned you on the air, it's $75 for a t-shirt at Lululemon. So I don't know what I can afford.
So since you brought up Lululemon, I will tell you that I was in a Lululemon store a few weeks ago because I needed to purchase a new pair of ABC pants.
Oh, best pants in the world.
They are the best pants in the world. And while I was in the store, I saw some of the Team Canada merchandise. It is very nice and it is very expensive. One thing that I didn't understand about the opening ceremony outfits that they were wearing is if you have this heavy, warm winter coat, why would you want to remove the sleeves? I don't get that.
The coat, I looked it up yesterday. I told you this off air, but I'll tell the listeners. They have this customizable coat. It's adjustable. You can remove the bottom to make it shorter or longer. You can take the sleeves on or off. You can configure. It's called a configurable coat. You can have it any kind of way you want. So it was confusing yesterday because we saw some of the athletes coming with this long coat with no sleeves, right?
And by the way, the coat, while it is, I'm sure it's very warm. I don't know. I haven't actually worn it.
Right.
It is too long. That coat would bother me.
Right.
Especially if if I was driving.
Oh, you can't. But I mean, that's more of a women's style, I think, a long coat like that. No? Anyways.
Well, the men were wearing it too.
They were. Well, they have no choice. Although they could have configured it short, I guess. Maybe they didn't know.
So speaking of the Olympics, I know because you mentioned you watched hockey and I've watched all the hockey games so far, but you'll be surprised to hear me say this. I am so into the curling, the mixed doubles curling. I'm so into it.
Oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this. I had the curling on this morning. Like it was just on TV while I was making coffee. And I was thinking to myself, who in their right mind can watch this?
It's actually quite fascinating. Part of the thing I like about it is all the curlers have mics right on their shirts. And so
you hear all the strategy.
You can hear every single word they are saying, like the strategy, what they want to do. It's like there's no secrets whatsoever. Imagine you could hear that like in other sports that you watch. You would love that.
I know, because this is not a sport. This is a game. This is a game they play on cruise ships. You know, it's called shuffleboard.
Except it's on ice. But I never told you this. Like I called a curling club a few months ago because I wanted to join. Like I want to actually learn how to curl. Unfortunately, there's not many opportunities because if you want to be part of a curling club, you need to be part of a team. And like what existing team is going to want me on their team? I suck at curling, right? They're going to want somebody good, not me.
Yeah.
So,
but you can't just join up and.
Well,
I mean,
I guess there's a way to take lessons, but they don't offer lessons, all the time. And if you do, it's quite expensive, and the equipment's also expensive. So it's not a simple thing. But I'm gonna look into it because I want to actually learn how to curl.
Is curling popular in Ontario? Look, I know. Look. I've just insulted millions of people. There's millions of Canadians that do curling. Curling's very beloved in a lot of places in Canada, but I always assumed it was more of a Western type of pursuit. You know, like the Western provinces, because in Quebec it's not really that big.
I think it's getting bigger in Quebec, and it is pretty big in Ontario. And like when you ask someone about the most iconic Canadian things, maple syrup, bacon, hockey, lacrosse, curling is in the list.
No, of course it is. Yeah, I know. Have you ever done curling before? Ever?
I've done it a few times because, places that I've worked, we've had like outings where the whole company will go curl for a day. And it's actually quite fun. Unfortunately, it goes by so quick. By the time you get the hang of it, it's over.
Right. Well, maybe I should try it. I've just like mocked this sport, but maybe I should actually try it before I mock it, because apparently it's very fun. Like you said, it's tons of fun. It's more of like almost like a get together, like when you play with friends, right? Like it's a social activity.
Plus, if you watched any of the mixed doubles curling so far, the Canadian team with Rachel Homan and John Morris, it's great to hear them talk to each other. If one of them makes a mistake, the other one calls them out on it like live during the game. And it's pretty amazing to hear that. So I realize it's not like one of these rough and tumble sports like football or hockey where there's hitting and stuff, but they actually get angry at each other if they make a mistake. Wow. And it's interesting to hear it.
There's a lot of the sports that when we looked up last night, what are the new sports in the Olympics this year? You actually texted me without even knowing that we had looked it up. The monobob,
because I was talking about that with a few other friends of ours yesterday on the phone, and I said, yes, there's a new Olympic sport. It's called monobob, and of course, none of them had any clue what I was talking about. So then after we were done, I texted them information about it.
It's like a solo bobsled, I guess.
Correct, yes.
And then a lot of the other new sports are not really new. They're just they made mixed categories.
Right, like speed skating, for example, relay speed skating.
Yeah. They started doing that in the Summer Olympics, the last Summer Olympics last year, and I mean, I guess that's the trend now. So kind of cool.
Major League Baseball.
So I just wanted to have one more. I only had one more topic, and that was a little bit of baseball.
Okay.
We've talked over the last year about this weird plan by the Tampa Rays to split their games between Tampa and Montreal, and just recently, MLB finally came out and said, we don't support this. So basically the plan's over now. It was really weird here, Josh, in Montreal, the day that news came out. It was really weird. Like I happened to be in the car because I had an appointment to go to physiotherapy, and I was listening to the sports radio, and they were talking about it on the radio, like as if it was like some big, huge hammer that fell, and what a dark day for baseball in Montreal. It was like doom and gloom. And I was listening to this and I was like, what kind of reality are we in here? Like, there was no way this was ever going to happen. Like, there was, I know they say they had plans and they were serious about it and everything, but like in my mind, this was never ever happening. It was just some weird thing that they were talking about. Like I just didn't get it.
Well, I
you know,
didn't
to
hear
be
any of
honest.
that because I obviously don't live in Montreal anymore. But, when this plan was first announced, what it seems like 2 years ago now, I told you then that it sounded like asinine. And then when you told me that, the plan was shot down just a few weeks ago, I said, well, I hope so. And it's about time they shot it down because it was the dumbest idea ever. To try to build 2 new stadiums in 2 different cities that would only be used half the amount of time made absolutely no sense. This is
Zero. Like Tampa already has a problem with their lease in their stadium, and now they're trying to get one built, and they don't know how they're going to do it. So they already have that hurdle to overcome, which is huge. And then they expect a stadium to be built here in Montreal, where it's like going to be impossible to do. That's the part of the plan that never made sense. It was like, how are they possibly going to build 2 stadiums when it's already almost impossible to build 1 stadium? So that's what I just didn't get. And I heard a lot of theories about like, why did MLB finally like say no to this? And apparently they just were going along with it all the time because they never thought it was serious. And they thought it was the Tampa owner making up something to get leverage to get a new stadium from the city or the state, right?
And I'm sure that was part of it. I'm sure he was using it as leverage. Same thing
Right.
when the Oakland A's are threatening to move out of Oakland, because they want Oakland to build them a new stadium or someone to build them a new stadium. As much as I miss the Expos, if I was like the mayor of Montreal or the premier of Quebec and someone came to me and said, we need to build a new baseball stadium because we want to try and attract a baseball team, I'd say, get out of here. You're out of your mind. I'm not spending all that money on a baseball stadium. Forget about it.
Look, our hospitals are crumbling in Quebec. Like, there's just no way that any level of government here can come out and say, we're throwing this much money, X amount of millions for a stadium. It'll be the death of their political careers. Like, it can't happen, But so basically, what I was starting to say is like MLB went along with it because they thought it was just Tampa trying to get leverage, and then when they realized that it was actually a serious plan, and that there was people, they had meetings, and they had an actual plan to make this happen, and they realized that it could happen, they were like, no, we don't support this. Let's put an end to it. It's just the weirdest little plan in the world. Although I did hear an interview with the owner of the Rays. What is his name?
Stuart Sternberg.
Exactly. I heard an interview with the owner of the Rays, and he did say something that piqued my curiosity a little bit. He's saying that he really believes that this 2-city model is the way of the future, and that he really believes that all the professional sports are going to eventually have teams with this 2-city model, because he thinks it's going to be really, really viable. Now, it may not be viable in this situation because, like what we just said, you need 2 stadiums, but he really thinks that there's something to it in terms of like, if you get the right match, it really could work. And maybe he's right. Maybe he is right. I don't know, but I guess we'll see.
I mean,
certainly not in the NFL because there's only 16 games. That's never going to work.
If there are 2 cities that already have 2 stadiums that are up to Major League Baseball standards, and one city, let's say, is a warmer climate and the other one's a colder climate, then sure, it might work. But when there's 2 cities that don't have stadiums that need them to be built, then no, it's not going to work because it's way too expensive.
No, I agree. Anyways, like I just thought that was interesting because he's looking at the future and he's imagining something that's never been done. So I definitely, kind of congratulate him at least for that, like, I don't know.
When you hear all these stories, right? Like right now is it a lockout or a strike that's happening in baseball? I'm not even sure which one it is.
It's a lockout.
And the start of next season is in jeopardy. In fact, the entire season is in jeopardy. So when you hear stories like that, and then you hear also stories about, Bryce Harper getting a $300 million contract, and same thing with Manny Machado and a bunch of other players. When you hear those stories, it actually, I'm sort of relieved that Montreal doesn't have a baseball team, because if they did, there's no way that they could compete with those salaries. And then it would be the same thing all over again. As soon as any player would become good, they'd leave to go play for another team. So why do I want to support a team like that?
You shouldn't, and you won't.
There you go.
The Skip and Josh podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. To interact with the show, send an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Follow the show on Twitter and go to Facebook to like the show page. And now for some final thoughts from the guys.
So I exhausted all my topics, and I really don't have anything left here for the closing comments. But maybe you have some stuff that you still want to mention.
Yes. So, have you been watching The Goldbergs?
Yeah, I watch it all the time. I mean, I'm up to date, I think.
Okay, so a few things. If you are up to date, spoiler alert, if anyone is not up to date, do not listen to this. So our favorite couple broke up. Adam Goldberg and Bria B. They broke up.
It was never going to work.
But then apparently, in the most recent episode, they got back together again. So I'm not even sure what's going on with them.
But did you hear the controversy on the Goldbergs? Apparently, Jeff Garlin was kicked off the show now.
Well, this is what I wanted to talk about. So on the last episode, Murray is not on the episode at all. You don't see him, you don't hear him, nothing. They talk about him, but you don't see him or hear him. And so I have a feeling that he's not going to be in any more episodes.
No, he's not. They announced that. Well, I mean, he was kicked off the show basically for like really bad conduct on set. And we're not talking about sexual misconduct or anything like this. Then there's no allegations of that kind of stuff, but it's allegations of like really intense bullying and just making it a toxic work environment for all the cast and the crew. So from what I read is that he's finished filming everything he had to do except for one episode. There's still one day of filming that they wanted him to do, that he would have done, that's not done. So they're going to have to try to work around it, I think. And that's probably why you're seeing him with not in the episode at all.
I heard that they might take some footage from other episodes, shots where you see the back of his head or something, and intersperse that into the new episodes.
But it's going to be difficult because I always assumed that this season was going to end with the wedding.
And it might still, who knows?
Right. And obviously, like, to have the wedding of his daughter and him not to be in it, or like sort of be in it, could be really weird. But look, this is TV magic. These guys will figure it out. I don't know.
I always assumed that this was the last season for the show regardless, but maybe I'm wrong because they haven't announced anything with regards to next season.
I always thought that it was going to end with the wedding, and that was going to be the end of it.
And also Adam graduating high school and going to college.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like to me, it was coming to sort of a natural end. But obviously with Pops passing away in real life, and now with this, maybe this is the end. Like it'll just, that'll be that, right?
It's a shame because Murray's actually a funny character, and Jeff Garlin is also on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I find him funny on that show too.
I'm sure he is funny. We know he's funny, but we don't know what he's like in real life, like to work with, right? So.
No, we don't. So one other thing I wanted to mention, and you're going to laugh because everybody listening already knows what I'm about to say, including you. And I just discovered this on Monday. So Netflix, not that I just discovered Netflix, but every time I watch Netflix, when you have Bell 5, you just go to a certain channel on your guide and you watch Netflix that way. You don't have to turn on your computer. Mm-hmm. But the other day, I watched Netflix on my computer, and I discovered that for every single show, pretty much, there's all these extra features that don't exist when you watch it through Bell 5. You can watch trailers for the coming season. You can watch recaps from the previous season. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. I didn't know any of this existed. And so I've just opened up this huge new, I don't want to say can of worms because it's a good thing, not a bad thing, but it's like unreal.
That's so funny. But there's probably lots of people like you who watch Netflix through like Bell, like on their TV, like you do, right? Like
I assume.
But that's so weird. But I mean, I've always known that there is different versions of Netflix depending on the platform that you watch on. I discovered that a while ago. But yeah, that's really funny.
By the way,
so you watch all kinds of trailers and behind the scenes and stuff that you didn't know about?
Exactly. Yes, I did. So I have a question for you. Are you able to, if you had a VPN, are you able to log into the American Netflix?
Yes, and I have.
With your existing username and password?
Correct, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like, if I travel to New York today, and I can, like I have, or travel to the United States, and I connect to Netflix from there with my existing username and password, I'll see the American Netflix.
Okay.
It's like you get the shows that are where you are. You know, it knows where you are.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it is kind of interesting. At one point, I think a few years ago, my daughter wanted to watch something, and she's like, "It says it's on Netflix, but I can't find it." And then I looked it up. I'm like, "Oh, it's only on the American Netflix," because American Netflix has a lot more like TV shows, like reality type of shows, like at the time, you know. So, yeah, I have like a work VPN that connects me to my US company, and we logged on that way, you know, but like on a computer, right? Not on my TV, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that clears that up. Yeah, Tech Corner.
Nice.
So that concludes our episode, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does.
And I mean, I think we already have a great topic in mind for next episode. We got to get our research ready.
I'm ready for the next episode, but we won't divulge what the topic is.
So I think you're actually ready for the next two, right? Because we planned ahead a little bit.
Yes, we did. We were, for some reason, we're ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we are. By the time we have our next episode, you know, the Super Bowl will have happened. So have a great Super Bowl, and I'll speak to you next time.
Okay, have a good week.